Before I get into today's topic, I wanted to talk about the wood stove again real quick. In a previous video, I mentioned that a commenter said that they made wood stoves illegal in New York, which referenced back to a video that I made last year, but I couldn't remember what I had said last year and I wasn't going to look it up. But the commenter replied, based on my poor memory, that they'd banned these in New York. Well, I said that in a video, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, and several people said, no, they didn't ban them in New York. You're crazy. Well, I wasn't crazy. I was only replying to a commenter. So I decided to look it up. Okay, maybe not the state, but the city of New York City did. Bill Blasio, I think his name was. He was the mayor of the city, I guess last time. I mean, I really don't care, but yeah, he banned these. So yes, they do ban them in the United States. Apparently, Washington or Seattle, Portland maybe, those cities have banned them, which wouldn't surprise me based on what I'm going to tell you today. But to go deeper into this, a lot of municipalities actually ban these. And I get people to say all the time, this is our government, they work for us, they can't just take things away from us. That's okay, that's fine, but we got to remember the country's split, because the other half of the country does want them banned. And I'll explain, because I posted, should the government ban wood stoves? And I had a commenter said, of course they should ban wood stoves. They're dangerous. They catch houses on fire all the time. They put out bad smoke. There's a lot of people in the country that want them banned. So when we say that politicians work for us, well, they also work for them too. I say this a lot. Somebody said I should advocate for voting. And you vote if you want to. But it doesn't make any difference, because half the country believes one way and half the country believes the other way. I mean, what are we going to do? So the only thing I advocate for is you need to find your own freedoms. Go to an area that allows you to have wood stoves and hang on to the freedom as long as you can, however you can. I came out here to Missouri, way out here in the boonies. Nobody cares what we do right now. Of course, that could change in the future. Not saying it can't, but for right now, I figure I have, 30, 35 years left, maybe not even that much. If I can just hang on to it till then. What about the children? Well, I can't help the children. Apparently a lot of the children want these banned also. So what are you going to do? But I'm getting pretty excited to have the wood stove lit up. I guess probably next month we'll get it lit. I'm going to get some coconut oil. I told you on that. It's getting rusted more by the day. The thing I want to talk about real quick though, they say the smoke is bad for the environment. I don't understand this. The old wood stoves, there was just tons of smoke and pollutant coming out of it. But they write their articles like it's still the same thing. Back in, I don't know, the 2010s, somewhere around there, the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, changed rules overnight on how you can make wood stoves. Companies went out of business because they changed the law so fast. But several companies were able to comply with what was needed, and they put in these reburners. And these reburners burn the smoke. And some of these are very efficient. This one's 85% efficient, and it's only got 3 bars. The air tubes is what these are. The smoke comes up after it gets hot. The smoke comes up, hits that, and just bursts into a beautiful blue flame. It's really neat to watch. And then some of them not only have the air tubes, but they have like a radiator in there also that bursts the smoke in there. Those get up to about 99% efficient. Means all the smoke's being burned out. Especially if you're using dry wood, 20% moisture content or less. That is where I think the problem is, because in Alaska, and I'm going on memory, I read this article last year. In Alaska, they had bought for the town, some town in Alaska, a kiln where people could take their firewood in and get it dried like in 24 hours or however long it took. Well, nobody was using it, so they spent all these tax dollars on this kiln to dry it, and it wasn't being used, and yet all these people were burning their wood and tons of smoke was coming out of the chimney. Everybody had one of these new reburner stoves. So that's the problem, is people aren't following the guidelines set for these new wood stoves. So politicians try to appeal to the people who will ban these, the other half of the country, and they say, oh, look at all the smoke coming out of there. They don't mention that all we got to do is dry the wood, or try to come up with a campaign. So what do? They raise energy prices. They tell us how they're going to control everything. And I've got all kinds of stories I want to tell you today. They will eventually ban these, city by city. I would imagine, just like everything else, California will lead the pack on this. Of course, I guess California doesn't have a huge heating problem, but Seattle and Oregon, they'll ban them. And then there'll be, New York and all the eastern states, they'll ban them. And eventually the federal government say, hey, let's ban them. There's no amendment in the Constitution that says we can have wood stoves. And there are amendments in the Constitution that keep them from banning things, and they're still trying to ban those things, even though there's amendments. So this would be real easy, especially considering what I got to tell you next. I've been talking about the different things that the government's been trying to eliminate, and that we need to live off grid so you don't even have to worry about these things. I know that I'm getting ready to switch over to Europe, but this is important. I just watched a YouTube video that somebody sent me, Jen sent me, and they were talking about in the UK, they have smoke reduction zones. And what they say is you can only have so much smoke coming out of your chimney. Well, there's no way to really measure this. So what they do is they drive around and they see smoke coming out of your chimney. Oh, you got too much smoke. They come in and they give you a... And so they can fine UKers, people living in the UK, up to 1,000 pounds if they decide that you have too much smoke coming out of your chimney. Same thing in this video. The guy insinuated that this is just a logical next step, that we need to reduce the amount of pollutants coming out of the wood stoves. And he even said, wood stoves haven't changed technology since 1950s. Well, that's absolutely ridiculous, because I have a wood stove that is much nicer than the stoves being made in the 1950s, because I remember my grandmother had one that was made in the 60s, and it was, well, I had the same one. It was an old Franklin. They didn't have these reburners and all that stuff, and the fiberglass seals so the door doesn't leak and burn the wood too fast. It didn't have any of that. It just burned monster hot. This is the lie. They're going to convince half the country that the other half is just tearing it all up. And when in all honesty, I mean, heck, I don't want to use a lot of firewood. That's a lot of work having to cut all that firewood. So I want to use as little as possible. So I have a little tiny house and I burn, maybe 3 truckloads of firewood a year. So, let's just lie. And of course, nobody's going to check up on it, because everybody in the comment section believes that it's going to take 15 cords of wood to heat this house. I mean, I remember when I was saying I was going to heat this house with firewood. Oh, you can't, you won't have enough firewood on your property. Well, I haven't even touched the property. This is all free firewood over here. So it's a myth, and they're just going to propagate this myth as long as they can so they can ban it. So another thing that John sent me today, to just show that if they can ban this, they can ban wood stoves. So LA, Seattle, and New York, this is an article from The Hill, it's a newspaper, said that they're going to ban gas kitchen stoves, cooktop stoves, that have burned gas, natural gas, I guess, propane, in new construction homes. So that means it's all electric. They're going to go all electric on new construction. And the thing they're using is the same thing they're going to use with wood stoves. They're saying that the pollutants inside the house is much higher. I think it's nitrous dioxide, whatever it is. It's so terrible that it's causing harm to people. The same thing they said in that UK video that I watched about the smoke of the chimney. Oh, it's hurting the neighbors and it's hurting you every time you open the door and all that stuff. So let's talk about your personal health. That way we can ban it and nobody's going to say anything. And then, of course, they bring up the environment, that this nitrous dioxide, whatever it is, I don't care, is bad for the environment. It's hurting your neighbors. So they're playing on your feelings. Now, the thing that's so interesting is they even interviewed a realtor in this, I think, in this article. Realtors say that the gas stove tops are the most sought after when buying new homes. And that makes sense, because it's very efficient to use gas heat. I used to have an electric furnace. Electric furnaces are just terrible efficient wise. They just use up a ton of electricity for heat. Well, same thing with a cooktop stove. You're just losing a lot of efficiency with electricity. Now, the thing I find so interesting is they assume that electricity is not a pollutant, but they still use coal. I actually had a commenter one time tell me that I was wrong, that Chicago does not use coal for electric anymore. It's over with. Now, this was a couple of years ago. So they convinced this person, Chicago convinced this person they're not using coal for electric. I pulled up an article and I posted the article. It was like 60% of Chicago's electric was still being produced by coal. The person was flabbergasted. I can't believe it. Where'd you get this article? This article has to be wrong. They were just under the delusion of the lies they've been told that electric is so much better. I've watched 2 videos now, one from an actual news source, one from a YouTuber, that said California went completely with renewable energies, green technologies on electric, which was funny because when you really looked at the research, they didn't include LA, which is the largest user of electricity, and they also included natural gas. Well, natural gas produces carbon dioxide or nitrous oxide or whatever they call that, because that's why they want to get rid of the stoves. So they're being hypocritical. We can call it clean energy when we're trying to prove that we can power the state with clean energy, so then natural gas is clean, but when you use it in your home, it's not clean anymore. So this is just trying to squash the other guy. Now, what was so funny about this test that they did to show that they could run clean energy to run their power plants, it lasted for 4 seconds. And so they're thumping their chest, telling how great this is. They're going to save the world with clean energy. When in actuality, they haven't done a thing. I mean, 4 seconds, LA was not included, and they use natural gas. So this is just a smoke screen. They want to control your lives. They want you to do a certain thing. And if you really look at I'm going to call them elites. There's this organization, I'm not allowed to say on YouTube, because they suppress my videos every time I talk about this organization. But these elitists want the population reduced down to 500,000 people. And there's easy ways to do this. Freeze them out, starve them out, just take away everything of convenience, make it almost impossible for them to survive. And then the elitist will survive. Now, of course, they'll have some of the worker bees around. They'll keep some worker bees around. But they're already trying to reduce population. I mean, we are not reproducing children as fast as we used to. So it's just a matter of time before they're able to restrict all this. How much time? Some people say in 10 years. Others say it's next year. So I would highly recommend that you figure out how to find a very comfortable lifestyle, one that you can truly enjoy, like Carolyn and I are enjoying. We live off grid. We hardly use any electricity. We have 10 solar panels, 100 watts each. We power a refrigerator, a tablet, 2 phones, and I charge my camera up. We use a rechargeable camp lantern for lighting at night. Recharge it every night. And we're very happy, very comfortable. So I hope I can inspire you to find a happy lifestyle so you don't have to worry about them. Thanks for watching.